About $3.1 billion in revenue in the most recent quarter, about $320 million or so in operating income here. On a percentage basis, that growth is pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's massive. Over 50% growth in profitability in the first quarter over last year, which was the biggest year ever. So everything's shaping up right now that this year will far and away be our biggest year that we've had.
You're a behemoth of a company already, the biggest concert promoter out there. You own a ton of venues. When you see that type of double-digit growth coming for a company of this size, investors have to be asking you, is that sustainable?
Yeah, in our minds, it's absolutely sustainable. When we look at all the growth levers that we have on a global basis, every one that has driven our double-digit growth over the past decade is still there and is still more approachable than ever. Massive growth opportunities in Latin America, in Mexico, where we recently did a deal with Ocesa, Asia, all of those markets have tremendous growth opportunity. And even in the U.S. and Europe, 80% of the population don't go to concerts. 70% go to one, maybe two concerts in a year. There's still room for much greater penetration.
When we talk about the growth in attendance at these concerts, we know some of that is kind of pandemic effects, right? We had the shutdown. Once people finally were able to get out of the house, they were really aggressive in going back out. What type of trends are you seeing in that level of interest sustaining itself?
Yeah, I don't think it's pent-up demand. I think that it is we have a business that has massive latent demand.
Okay.
You have fans globally now, because of the social media platforms, are learning about artists faster and faster, and those artists are rising to the level of arenas, stadiums. You have tremendous artists from Morgan Wallen to Beyonce to RBD who are going out in stadiums this year. Some of these artists you may not have heard of 3 years. There's just tremendous growth, and they're there on a global basis. So I don't worry about us continuing to have the demand. We're continuing to work with more artists than ever on providing the supply, and we're there in the middle helping bring those pieces together.
What's sort of the, I guess, strata, though, in that field? You mentioned someone like a Morgan Wallen or a Beyonce. I mean, these are mega stars, right?
Yeah.
Anything they do, people are going to pay money to go see them do it. But there's a whole tier of artists below that. I'm curious, how does that fit into the Live Nation ecosystem?
Yeah. Well, we're big believers in working with artists from the smallest club to the biggest stadium. We have the vast majority of our shows are at the club and theater level. We want to be working with artists as they're getting started, as they're working their way through, get them to have a great experience working with us. And then as they get to the amphitheaters, the arenas, the stadiums, they naturally have an interest in continuing to work with us.
What's your cost structure looking right now for Live Nation as a business?
Yeah, our cost structure is getting much more in line. Over the past in 2022, we obviously had some issues with high costs, as did most players. This year, on our indoor buildings, our costs per fan are actually down. And as we project out getting into the amphitheater, the festival season, we think that our costs will increase below the cost of inflation, and that our overall profitability per fan will continue to grow as we see people spending more on tickets, spending more when they get there, and continued strong interest from brands on the sponsorship side.
Are you concerned about an economic downturn or a recession?
Fans are telling us that their number one priority for their leisure dollar is spending it on concerts. As we look at the macro data, we also see...
So that's a trade-off versus them spending, maybe going to the movies or doing something else.
Exactly.
What you're saying? Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you look at the macro data, it says the spend on live experiences is still 20% below what it was pre-pandemic. So we think there's tremendous resiliency in our business. It's historically done very well in downturns. Fans are telling us it's a priority. The macro data, as we shift back from goods to experiences, will support us. We've already sold over 90 million tickets for shows this year, well ahead of anything that we've ever been at historically.
Of course, your company has been in the news a lot lately, primarily because of all of the concerns about Ticketmaster's dominance and, more importantly, the fiasco surrounding Taylor Swift's concert sales last fall. You were dragged before Congress earlier this year. A lot of questions about the size and scope of Ticketmaster and whether that's fair to the consumer.
Yeah. Ticketmaster is the biggest ticketing system out there because it's the best, pure and simple, particularly for those complex arenas, stadiums, the buildings that have season tickets, suites, single games, concerts of every setup. They need the best, most sophisticated system to manage those shows and to handle the massive demand of an on sale. Ticketmaster is the best at it, full stop. It's why we have the largest share. but we continue to invest because we want to make sure we're doing more and more for those venues, artists and fans. It's why we developed digital ticketing, why we've developed Verified Fan, why we're trying to create more tools that give artists control of their ticket.
But you've heard a lot of criticism, of course, fans who think that the pricing structure, meaning the fees that get added on, are onerous, from venue owners that feel that they're being squeezed out by your reach, and of course by artists who say that they don't really have an alternative. They have to use Ticketmaster or they're just not going to be able to sell tickets. What's your response to that?
Yeah, I think that we have a lot of reforms that are needed in this industry. First and foremost, we need to shift the power back from the scalping market, where over $5 billion is taken away from artists and fans and put back in their hands. We've advocated for a number of reforms that gives the artists the true control over their ticket, that takes away some of the very deceptive practices that scalpers use, selling spec tickets, using bots. I think if we do that and we can provide the power back to the artists, then we're going to see a system that works much better for everybody.
Are you concerned at all, though, given that you're also in the Ticketmaster is also in the resale business, that scalpers have found a way to use your platform effectively to do what you're trying to stop?
Ours is primarily a primary ticketing business. Secondary market for us is in the mid-teens portion of our activity. We're in it because we want to make sure that we're giving fans the opportunity to buy whatever ticket they want. But we are tremendous supporters of what The Cure, what Pearl Jam recently did in mandating face value only exchanges, and in general giving the control to the artists to let them decide how they want their ticket distributed.
And your relationship now with those artists, it's still healthy?
Very good. Our system is the best out there, selling up to 15,000 tickets a minute at its peak, 20 million tickets a month. 99.9% of the transactions go through without a hitch. So yes, we have a very good relationship, and they know we've been working on their behalf and been developing tools for them.